last two options. I wouldn't recommend them personally, but each of them do have some upsides. Mona is Hydro, so she allows for good reactions, and late game she can help you do quite a lot of damage. Plus, she can sprint on water. Dia is probably the character you shouldn't pick, but if you think Lion Girl hot, go for it. She is basically a shielder without a shield. She gives her teammates interruption resistance, damage mitigation, and some fire damage, but that's kinda it. Don't do it honestly. So after doing your free 10 pull and free 5-star if it's available, you need to make a decision. Out of these 3 or 4 characters, pick one and level both them and their weapon up to the highest that you can. In this case, I picked Noelle because her normal attacks do the most damage out of the 3 I have so far. But for those playing with the free 5-star, you should probably level them up, since 5 stars have higher base stats than the 4 stars. The first thing you'll need to accomplish in this playthrough is Amber's Temple. Inside this domain, you are given a trial version of Amber, just in case you already realized how bad she is and removed her from the party. With Pyro, you can burn down these vines, but if you don't want to use that, then you can just jump over them. Afterwards, just hit the hilly trails with Amber's charge shot and suck them up with the Traveler, and you'll be good to go. Following Amber's Temple, you'll make your way over to Kaya's Temple. I would recommend coming over to this area and killing the Cryo Abyss Mage here, because it'll guarantee you adventure rank XP later on, plus you'll get an exquisite chest just for beating it. Just burn the shield with Amber and smack it with Noelle. As you keep exploring, you'll eventually find yourself at Kaya's domain. This temple isn't anything you really need to worry about. Once you make it into this room with the large pyro slime, just focus on killing it and the small ones will just disappear. Afterwards, you'll ice bridge across some spikes, but if you're feeling brave, you can just sprint jump over it. Once you break the crystal, you're just about done with the first active Mondstadt. All that's next is to go through Lisa's temple, but as you make your way over there, just be sure to collect all the chests and do all the puzzles you can find. That will help you in the future, I promise. When it comes to Lisa's temple, there's 2 ways to beat it: the easy way and the semi-medium easy hard way.
So that's how you wanna play it, huh?
But since I'm not like my high school algebra teacher, I'm gonna show you the easier way to solve this problem first. When you reach this wind current, swap to your tallest character and sprint jump right at the edge and glide over here. If your character gets stuck, you should be able to hover the ledge and climb up. Now it's time for the normal way. All you need to do is follow the gray brick road. Once you reach this electro pillar, activate the challenge with Lisa and swap to the character that you leveled up in the beginning, and they should be able to clear this easily. When it comes to wet enemies, don't worry because Lisa's got them covered.
When it comes to wet enemies, I've got them covered.
That's what I'm saying.
Once you destroy the last rock, you will be done with Act 1. For Act 2, you need to reach AR 10, so it's time for us to grow. And this is gonna take a long time, so if you just want to skip to Act 2, go to this timestamp. This next section will include 3 pieces of general advice: teams, resin, and exploration. We'll start with the teams. At this point, I would recommend leveling your characters and their weapons in terms of which ones you are using the most. Be like a parent who is not afraid to reveal their favorite. Pick one character and give them the best, and give the hand-me-downs to the accidents. In general, I would recommend picking 2 characters at some point to level up consistently, because trying to level up 4 characters can very easily drain your resources. You don't have to finalize your 2 right now, but I would at least keep it in the back of your head. The teams in this game are usually built around this blueprint: 1 main DPS, 2 sub DPS, and a support. A main DPS is a character who has to be on the field to do damage, whether it be from using their normal attacks the most or because their skills only work when they are on the field. A sub DPS is a character who doesn't have to be on the field to do damage. An example of this would be how Amber's abilities work. Baron Bunny and her ultimate last off the field. Kaya Burst is also another example of this. However, Noelle Burst does not work like this. Whenever she swaps, the ult is gone. Sub DPSs usually help provide an extra elemental reaction to the main DPS. Supports are exactly what they sound like. They support the team. This is done through healing, shields, or buffing allies, and like the sub DPS, their abilities tend to last after they leave the field. Most teams generally follow the rotation of support, sub DPS, then main DPS, and this is usually the standard comp that I run, but you don't have to play like this. Some people swap out a sub for another support. This game can be played with anybody, and I have proved that many times. So if you want to run a team of just your favorite characters who have no synergy together, that works. But I will say this: if you want my advice to make a team out of these 5 characters, here's what I think. I would use Traveler, Noelle, Amber, and Kaya. If you want to use Lisa, then I would swap out Amber for her. Animo Traveler for me is just fun. I like to use them early on because the swirls can do some good damage at this point. Noelle is one of the characters I would encourage you to use on your team for the time being, just because of her shield. If you are newer, it will help you get used to the combat, and she does good damage with her normal attacks at this point. You can just use her shield and bonk away. Then we have Amber. I still stand by what I said earlier about her not being a good character, but the reason I would recommend having her out is because there's plenty of pyro monuments out in the open world, and when you see them, it can be annoying to have to pause the game, swap out a party member for Amber, do the puzzle, and then swap her back out for your character. So my advice is to just keep her there simply for exploring. You don't have to level her up, she's just there to make things less tedious. They really want you to have a bow character for exploring, so having one on your team never really hurts. If you have literally any other bow character, I would recommend using them over Amber. Next is Lisa. At this point, she's not that great. She's got low damage, and Electro really isn't that good without Dendro. I didn't use her for the guide playthrough, but if I had to give off some positives, it would be that she can apply Electro easily, and she does become somewhat okay later on when you have Dendro characters, and because of her second ascension passive. And then we have Kaya. Out of any of the characters the game gives you at this point, this is the character that I would recommend putting the most investment into. And the reason I'm saying that is because Cryo is very useful for a majority of the enemies you're going to encounter. I mentioned a couple of seconds ago that this game can be played using any character, and that is true. But elements do matter in terms of progressing through enemies, and in my experience, I can tell you that Cryo is the most useful element for combat in the story. So if you want fun, level up the character you enjoy the most. If you want my advice, invest in Kaya stocks. Or if you're lucky enough to have the Cryo 5-star at this point, then use that. Also, at this point, give your characters artifacts. They don't have to be leveled, just give them something. This will be the first artifact checkpoint that I have for you, and this is just to serve as a reminder to have them on or be leveled. The flower and feather will always be HP and attack stat respectively, so for the other 3 stats, I would recommend looking for attack, energy recharge, and elemental mastery. I wouldn't recommend looking for crit at this point because the ratios are just way too low and the reward isn't really worth it. Especially since you could just try and get your burst as quickly as possible and one-shot the enemies that way. As for Noelle, give her HP and defense. You will get plenty of those artifacts. Characters don't always scale from attack. Some characters use HP, defense, and elemental mastery. It's different for everyone, so here's a chart that tells you what each character scales from. For the second section, we have resin. This is how I use my resin. From AR 8 to 15, use it on ley lines. This is helpful for XP books, and once you do 10 of them, you get 200 XP from the Adventurer Handbook. At this point, you will gain green and blue XP books, which is important because as you explore, you will obtain purple books. These purple books are much more valuable than the other books. It is not even close. But I recommend going for these because these books are only really useful for getting a character up to level 20. You will want to save your purple books as much as you can because they are very important later on. And if you ended up using them on a character you don't like, then you just wasted a lot of XP. For AR 15 to AR 35, I recommend using it on bosses and weapon materials. There's no reason to fight bosses before AR 15 because they are level 30 plus, and you can't go above level 30 until you reach AR 15. So there's no point in putting in more effort to get close to the same reward. AR 35 up to AR 45, focus on bosses and talent books. You don't need to focus on talent books much before this point because you can get the green and blue talent materials through chests in the regions that you explore. For AR 45 and onwards, use it for artifacts and other materials that you need as they come along. You will also obtain this material called fragile resin. Do not use it. Save them for later because you will need them. For the third part, we have exploration. Exploration can mainly be divided into 2 sections, that being combat and actually exploring. For combat, I'll give some general advice. A majority of the enemies in this game have very simple movesets. I'm talking they use like 2 to 6 attacks. The best thing to do is to keep hitting them because the enemies stagger when you hit them after a certain amount. Elements are also a really big part of this game. If you have just the 5 characters, there's not too many great reactions to make from this. What I would look for would be using the Kaya or Lisa's abilities into the Traveler skill. I'll show you a chart here that shows all of the elemental reactions in this game. There is one reaction that I will heavily encourage you to use, and I will mention it many times throughout this playthrough, that being freeze. Freeze is very good because it means the enemies cannot move. The reaction itself doesn't do damage, but they are completely open to your attacks. You may not have a Hydro character at this moment, but there will be one available later. Plus, Cryo is also the only element that applies a debuff just by hitting an enemy with it. Enemies that have the Cryo status have all of their animations slowed by 15%. This includes their attacks. So Cryo is especially helpful if you're new to the game and trying to get used to the enemies.
Stack 'em, kids, we gotta cool it!
If you find yourself on the defense in combat, there's 3 options you can use. I mentioned the first option, which would be shielding earlier, but for the second option, we have dashing. The main method of movement can also be used as a dodge, because you are invincible at the start of it. it. So if you see an attack coming, just press dash. This also applies to your own attacks. So if you get stuck in a move and you see an enemy attack coming, you can dash out of your attack to dodge it. Just don't get too carried away with the dashes because you will run out of stamina. But if that does happen, then you can use the final defensive option, which would be your burst. When you burst, your character has invincibility frames. So if you're out of stamina, you can use your ult or insta-swap to a character using a burst. To do this on PC, just press Alt and the number of the character you want. And for mobile, just tap the burst icon on the character. As for consoles, I'm sorry, I don't think there's an option available at the moment. The last thing I'll mention for combat right now would be elemental shields. That cryo abyss mage we fought earlier was the first of many more to come. So I'll just show you this picture of which elements work well against elemental shields. You can screenshot it or come back to this video if you want to find
my wolf pack. They are my family.
Your family?
Yes, they raised me. We live together. We are family.
So many questions.
They are angry with me. I help you exposed our...
Don't worry. Paimon will get her friend to catch you another boar.
out which elements to use against a specific enemy. And like I mentioned earlier, cryo tends to be very helpful against a majority of them. And now we've got actually exploring. My advice is simple. If you see a chest, if you see a sparkle on the grass, if you see an oculi on the map, do it now because we both know that we're gonna forget it later. If you see a chest locked by monsters, fight them unless their level color is red. That means that fighting them is possible, but not very fun. So proceed with caution. As for what region to explore, there is actually one that is the best, Leeway. It says that common chests have a 50-50 chance of giving either 10 or 20 XP, but in my experience, Leeway common chests almost always give 20 XP. I don't know if I'm lucky or whatever, but Leeway common chests and a couple areas in Mondstadt tend to give out 20 XP much more often than common chests in other areas. At this point, we should be around AR 6 to 8. So I'll show you what I do at this part to get AR quickly. What I like to do is go straight over to Dragonspine. Remember to collect chests and Oculus on the way. When you enter Dragonspine, it'll show that you're in a highly dangerous area, but don't worry because we are not going to fight anything. Just be careful with the cold mechanic. If that bar gets too high, get next to a fire sealy, light a bonfire, or stand next to a statue or teleport waypoint. All we're going to do here is break this ice crystal, unlock the statue, then head over to Leeway. For this crystal, swap over to Noelle and come up here to break the red rock. Then ignore those enemies and hit the crystal. Do this for the one behind the crystal and slowly sneak up behind the ice biggie churl and break this red rock. Then bring it over to the ice crystal, which should destroy it and give you a standard wish along with 200 XP. Following that, make your way up to the statue, hit the ice with your red rock, give it your Animoculus, then we'll be on our way over to Leeway. Here's a little side note on the Oculus. Every region has them, and as of 5.0, they now all give stamina when you place them into the statues. Increasing your stamina is pretty important, and if you want to go max out your stamina, that's fine. Here's a map of all of the locations, and even though all of the regions now give out stamina, I recommend exploring Mondstadt and Leeway to get them, since they have a lot less Oculus than the other two nations. But now, we're gonna go into Leeway. This is where we're gonna start doing some quests. Once you make it to this statue, go down to the little village so you can start the side quest, which gives out a ton of XP. For this, all you have to do is just go to these 4 glowing circles, find a piece of paper, and carry on to the next one. Some of these places have blue rocks called Nocticulus Jade, which can be mined. Use Noelle to collect 3 of these for an upcoming quest. If you get scared of some of the enemies here, just use Noelle's shield and run away. After you find all 4 scrolls, go up to this tree and you'll be ambushed by some treasure hoarders. Just put up your shield with Noelle and use Kaya and Amber's elements to swirl with your traveler, then you'll be done with this quest. The next 4 quests that I like to do are at Wangshu Inn, so let's head over there and collect whatever we can along the way. If you've seen my might know teleporting video, you will probably recognize this very strategy. Once we reach the end, the first quest to do is talk to this person. For this, all you have to do is ride the elevator and meet his boss. Yeah, that's literally it. The next quest is from this person on the edge. He needs you to recover 3 invoices. Just follow the 2 circles, but when you reach this bridge, talk to the guard and do his quest, which involves killing these hilichurls on the side. After that, you may be around the point where you have enough primos to do the second 10 pull for a Noel banner. And if you're like me, you'll get a Diluc, but don't get your hopes up because this does not happen often. And I'm not gonna leave you behind. I will not stop using these characters until Inazuma, because by the time we get to Inazuma, you will have at least one character on your team that is not one of the 5. But back to the invoices. Keep exploring and fighting enemies up until you reach this mountain. When you approach this house, you'll see a woman who has the invoice, but she wants Nocticulus Jade, which we do have because we mined them in the caves earlier. Give her the rocks and you're just about done with the quest. Return to the hotel to give this guy the invoices, and then afterwards head to the bottom and talk to these guys. All you have to do for them is make a radish suit, and they'll give you 100 XP just for doing that. But since you're here, be sure to make 2 of them because 1 will be used for later. Now that we've done 5 quests that all give a good amount of XP, the next thing to do is just keep exploring. In Leeway, you can change your Traveler's element to Geo. Geo is a better element on the Traveler than Anemo is, so if you want to change to Geo, go for it. You miss out on a better reaction, but Geo Traveler does a lot more damage than Anemo Traveler. I chose to keep using Anemo Traveler just because I think it's fun, but you do you. As for getting an adventure rank at this point, what I usually do is head into Leeway Harbor, buy 3 mist flowers from the pharmacy here, while collecting all of the waypoints and chests I can find along the way. You can also get free XP from this quest over here. Just give this guy a sweet Madame chicken, which you should have gotten from the mail earlier, and you get free XP. Somewhere along exploring and doing the side quest, you should be around AR10, so go to the mailbox and collect your free 10 pull. You've earned it. I recommend using this 10 pull on the Noel banner, but you can use it on standard banner if you want. If you use the 10 pull on Noel banner, then you will very likely get one of these 4-star characters. Here is where I rank these characters based on whether I think you should invest in them or not. But after this point, the only time
In the carts after all.
Huh, not such a mystery after all. Enough talk, let's go help out.
rank these characters based on whether I think you should invest in them or not. But after this point, the only time you will get blue wishes is from ascending characters and the monthly reset. So from this point on, starting now, from this moment, this will be the moment starting now that you should only wish on the limited character banners. Do not use your primo gems on standard banner. There is no point.
What about that shadow?
That's beyond all. You must never go there.
And I know what you're all thinking at this point. Ah, Mr. Feet, you're so funny and attractive, but since we got AR10, we should be starting the second act of Mondstadt, right? No, you can start it if you want, but I would recommend saving it later. The Archon quests give out a lot of adventure rank, and since leveling up resets your XP, we don't want to let it go to waste. I like to delay doing the Archon quest till around AR 15 to 16, which sounds like it'll be a while, but it's really not. Because once you go into Mondstadt, visit Catherine and you'll be rewarded with materials for reaching AR 10, one of which includes a 4-star sword that you can give to your Kaya or Traveler. Put this on the sword character that you use the normal attacks on the most. Additionally, you'll also be given the Adventurer's Handbook. This handbook is extremely useful for us because once you open it and collect your rewards, you'll quickly realize how far we've gotten together. I mean, just think about it, we're practically siblings now. From this moment, your objective should be to just follow the notebook as long as you can. You can come over here to find a Ruin Guard, which can be defeated easily if your Lisa has a strong weapon, or you can shoot its weak spot with Amber. These things have high physical resistance, so it's one of the few situations where Lisa is pretty good. The next tricky thing in the notebook is to visit the statue at the Dawn Winery, which is guarded by an Eye of the Storm. This enemy is kind of similar to the Ruin Guard in that if you have strong weapons for your Amber or Lisa, this fight will be easy. When it's in the air, use Amber's charge attacks or Lisa's normal attacks, and it should go down. If not, just use Noel's shield and wait for it to get low enough on the ground for Kaya to hit it. Do not use Anemo Traveler for this. If you keep following the notebook and collecting everything you find, you should make your way over to AR12, which is an easy XP farm for 3 reasons. Number 1 being daily commissions. Daily commissions are basically free 1000 XP a day, which is really huge. If there's a reason you can't stay on Genshin for long because you actually have a life, I would recommend at least doing dailies and your resin because they go a long way. It is basically 2000 XP in total that you can do every single day. And for those doing challenge accounts, I would recommend changing the location to Leeway ASAP as possible because there are some Mondstadt daily quests that require Anemo, which you might not be trying to use. To change it to Leeway, you just have to complete the second Mondstadt quest, then there will be a quest with Catherine telling you to go to Leeway. The second reason AR-12 is important is because of the Xiangling story quest. This is the first story quest in the game that I choose to do because it's easy and it's short. Just follow her wherever she goes, and when you get to this section, give them the second radish soup that you made from the hotel, and then you can enter the domain. Use her and Animo Traveler together, since Pyro and Animo Traveler go together like peanut butter and bananas. Not jelly, because Animo isn't Pyro's first option. The third reason AR-12 is important is that you can do Amber's Temple again for 400 XP, which is just gonna be not an issue for you at this point. Before we get to the next section, let me just pause to remind you to check your characters and your weapon levels. Make sure they are at or close to 20. I would also recommend putting 3-star artifacts on all of your characters, or at the very least 2-star ones. Bring the 3-star artifacts up to level 4 and put them on your 2 most important characters. Since we've explored some of Leeway, you should have a fair amount of 3-star artifacts. Now it's time to do 3 more story quests: Amber, Lisa, and Kaya. These are all self-explanatory. Just follow the character and enter a domain, then fight some enemies. It's nothing you haven't seen already. I'll show you the location of the treasure chest in Kaya's story quest, but these quests are short, easy, and give a good amount of XP. Once you reach AR-15, you will be allowed to ascend your character.
Place on the body.
But look at this.
Another hair. But what's that stuck to it?
seed of a wolf hook berry. Look, there are little hooks on the seed.
You should have 2/3 of the materials needed, but if you're missing these crystals, just head over to Marjorie and purchase the ones you need. If you don't have the other materials, I would highly recommend looking at the interactive
I'll go and see to the villagers before we
map
head off.
online. It really helps out a lot. Link is in the description, but I will show you a picture of the map for the starting character materials. The first ascension is pretty cheap, they don't take many books, and it's not a lot of Mora, so there's no real harm in doing them. Plus, once you do it for the first time, you get a wish, which is cool. After the ascensions, pick your favorite and level them up to 40, and if you have any leftover books, do the same for your second favorite, and so on and so forth. At this point is when I say we can go back and start the Archon quest. After a lot of following and talking, you'll go to the Windrise tree and fight an Eye of the Storm. But since we beat one earlier, this shouldn't cause you any problems. Use your Lisa or Amber when it's flying, and when it's low to the ground, smack it with your melee characters. Next up is the stealth mission inside the church. There's not really a need to use the crouch button, just make your way up the ladder past this guy and you will be good. Following some more cutscenes, you'll get to play as Diluc in the Fatui hideout. To start this, run. Run straight across because if you take too long, it'll flip over and you'll die in the lava. This, run. Will be good. Following some more cutscenes, you'll get to play as Diluc in the Fatui hideout. To start this, run. Run straight across because if you take too long, it'll...
Better late than never. In the meantime, we'll just have to keep...
Please, don't do it.
Goodbye. It's awful.
What is?
Their future outlook, I mean. Young people can be so impulsive sometimes.
It's no trouble. That's what we're... Leave it to us. If you really like standing around like this, then why don't you just model for me? I'll design some wonderful clothes for you.
It's time to deliver!
Who says you have to use scissors to cut clothes? Leave those rigid rules behind. I much prefer using my own cutting tools. It's up to me to decide who I want to be, and to cut my own path. No one can tell me what to do.
Flip over and you'll die in the lava. As for the 4 areas, just follow the order like I did, but when you get to this room, select the top and middle dialogue options. That way, you don't have to do any more combat. Once you take the elevator, you'll fight a Fatui agent. These enemies can be tricky, but if you stay on the aggressive, there's not much they can do to you. If you hit them with one of your elemental attacks, you'll be able to see where they are when they're invisible. Other than that, if you see them getting ready to attack, just dash and you'll be fine. they go in a straight line. With that finished, we need to find 3 tiers. One is located where we fought the first ruin guard, so just do what you did to the one earlier and this won't be an issue. The second tier is in the woods, but all you need to do is run up these stairs and that's that. The final tier, however, does require some more effort. You might see this Eye of the Storm here and get intimidated, but don't be, because you can just ignore it and enter the domain. Inside is nothing special, just a couple of slimes and hilly churls, nothing you're not already used to. Once you reach the pyro mage though, you can push it over to the water to help destroy its shield faster. And here's a pro tip for abyss mages. You can manipulate their teleporting. If you turn your back on them and run away, they will try to cut you off and teleport in front of you. So if you could turn around and run towards the water, and the pyro one should land close to it, which will extinguish the fire shield. After you beat the mage, collect a chest, and following a couple of cutscenes, you'll be done with Act 2. At this point, some of you may be AR-18, which means you can go straight into Act 3, but if you're not, just keep exploring. One of the side quests you can do is based around that pyro monument next to the stairs. Just go to these locations, defeat the hilly churls, and activate the totems. This will give you a lot of XP and a big chest. Use your resin on bosses, do the Kaya domain again for the 400 XP, and you'll eventually get to AR-18. Take your time, do not worry, this video will be here waiting forever. Once you reach AR-18, you can start Act 3, but let's use this as an artifact checkpoint real quick. Make sure your favorite 2 have artifacts leveled 4 through 8, and the rest just make sure they have at least 3-star artifacts with good main stats. They don't have to be leveled because they may or may not be on the team for much longer. The first obstacle in Act 3 is a Hydro Abyss Mage, which should be no problem for you if you have Cryo on your team. Lisa is also not a bad idea here either. Afterwards, you'll make your way over to the gate and fight some hilly churls. For the shield enemy, if you still have a pyro character, try and burn the shield, then use Animo Traveler. But if you don't, then you can use this bit of tech. Don't waste your time trying to hit his shield. Just run away from him, then he will charge you like this. As he's charging, dodge to the side and hit them in the back. Keep doing this if you do not have a pyro character, and this is an easy way to defeat them quickly. Once you make it past the gate, you have 3 power switches to turn on. The first one on the left has a time limit for it, but assuming your characters and weapons are leveled, it shouldn't be an issue. Lisa and Kaya work well against the pyro shield. The next 2 switches don't even require combat, just get all 3 and bring them to the switch, and you'll be ready to take on Dvalin. The first phase is just like the aerial section we did in the beginning, except this time, Dvalin fights back, and by fights back, I mean he puts his hands up, but his weak spots are still very open.
Put your hands up. No.
The dragon will shoot orbs at you, but they do so little damage that it might as well not be there. Just take the wind currents when you can and shoot his purple spot, and you'll be on to the next phase. This time, Dvalin does more than put his hands up, he actually swings. His first attack is always this dive onto the stage. Just walk to the left or right at the start and it will not hit you. Or if you're ballsy and a stud like me, you can time your dash and not take any damage. In this battle, you are given a Venti, who is a great asset for this fight. Use his charge attacks for Dvalin's shield, and once its weak spot is open, just lay into him with everyone and repeat it again if you don't kill him the first time. Defeating Dvalin will mark the end of Mondstadt. With Mondstadt completed, you have to reach AR-23 in order to start Leeway, so strap yourselves in because this will take a while. But for now, you are rewarded with a free Barbara. If you are investing in Kaya, I would recommend replacing Noelle with Barbara, simply because Barbara will allow you to freeze enemies with Kaya. Alongside Barbara, you'll unlock the Dilute quest immediately, and the race.
I do agree that it's awful, but that doesn't change the fact that...
We didn't attack village, not us. A black wolf and his pack, not from here. They tried to take over land. They broke the code.
Whose code?
Guardian of this land.
That's now the 2nd time you've brought that up. Tell us who that is.
I take Lupercal further in. Follow me.
Story quest at AR-21, but I would recommend waiting to do those until AR-22 since they give out a lot of XP, but if you want to do the Diluc one now, that works. Just one thing to note before the grind, once you hit AR-20, the enemies will become higher level, so they will be matched with you. Make sure that you have a level 40 character with a level 40 weapon at this point. The game gives you the prototype Rancors Ascension materials for free, so you have no excuse. Don't lie to me. Also, when you hit AR-20, you will unlock the Spiral Abyss, but just wait on doing that for now.
Kinda looks like the battle pass.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that looks like the battle pass.
Does look like the battle pass.
Definitely a battle pass.
That shit look like the battle pass.
That's what I'm saying.
As for the grind between AR-19 and 21, just explore the way, Storm Terror's Lair, do your dailies, use your resin on bosses, and do world quests if you see them. The ones I recommend doing are the Primo Geovishap quest, and this one where all you do is turn cranes over to the center. If you collect chests while exploring to get these quests done, you will be surprised with how much XP you can get for doing this. For the Primo Geovishap fight, it can seem scary, but as long as you save your Noel shield for this attack, you should do fine. If you ever get low, just remember that you can use your food to heal. When you start a world quest, you don't have to finish it right at that moment. You can be like my ex and just not fully commit towards it. So do what you want at your own pace. Additionally, now that you've completed Mondstadt, you do have the option to go straight to Fontaine to explore. So if you just so happen to get any of these characters, you can go farm their materials. What you have to do is look at your map, go over to around this area, zoom in, and you do have a teleport waypoint to Fontaine. Once you've explored enough and reached AR22, I would advise you to start the Diluc quest. You'll be given 2 opportunities to play as Diluc in this, so make the most out of them. Because when the game gives you a trial character, they are usually pretty strong in the earlier parts of the game. As for the Mist Flowers I mentioned near the beginning, this is where you'll use them, since Diluc needs them for his secret formula. After you finish Diluc's quest, you'll be able to start Razor's. Razor has a fairly simple story quest, just go wherever he needs you to go. But once you get to this point, stop to check your team, because next up is a boss who is immune to both Animo and Cryo. At this point, you can either swap out your Animo and Cryo characters, or if you don't have that luxury, or simply don't feel like doing that, you can just Noel shield and play as the Trial Razor to do all of the damage. Once you make it to about halfway, the wolf will dash at you a couple of times, and the fight is over. This
Help me. Collect these.
Aren't those wolf?
Crush them. Put up.
It's true. Wolf hook seeds have a liquid coating that not only. I read that in a book. Why? I have no idea.
Hooks help seeds move. Liquid stops. Animal doesn't feel hooks. Purple teacher told me so. I stay here. Take care of this one. I answer Red Girl's questions.
Right. And if that your wolf friend is not clear of my suspicion just yet. But
bosses like Dvalin in the sense that they are both weekly bosses. If you go to your handbook, you can challenge any weekly boss that you need for the characters. You can only challenge 3 of them a week, so pick your battles wisely. Assuming you did both of these quests at AR22, you'll be over halfway to AR23, so just explore some more and eventually you can start the Leeway Archon quest. The first objective is a stealth section, but when I say stealth, I say that very loosely. If you take this path,
Razor was just telling me about the Woven Code of Conduct. Mind-blowing stuff.
Thank you.
We've looked everywhere and haven't seen any other wolves.
Yep, that's wolves for you. The one we managed.
What are you doing?
It's him! The one who was raised by wolves!
Huh? So, it was you. I can't believe you would help wolves. They throw you some scraps and you treat them like kin? Have you...
Enough! Yeah! You can't talk...
The Knights of Favonius are gonna...
We did not raid village.
What is this disturbance to which I awaken? This is no offering to Boreas. Not only do you come for my kind, so too do you fail to recognize your own transgression. I will not stand for such impertinence.
Keep back!
Flag fly! Flags up! And step! Strike is one!
Just like he said. An outside wolf pack coming in and breaking. But Razor, you must not get involved. This is for the wolves to settle between themselves. You fight not with claws, but with the sword. You strike not with teeth, but with lightning. You are human, Razor.
I am not like them. I don't belong.
You are no wolf. This and you are Razor's Lupercal amongst humans. If you ever wish, you may train with me. I have nothing further to say. May we meet again, Razor and company.
Hey, Razor, what's that look for? Why don't you... Yeah, you have a friend in Mons. You know, that red... You're not safe in the wild anymore.
I'm fine. Don't worry. But also, not Wolf. Thank you, Traveler, Paimon, and the other red girl.
Hey, we've been with you all this time, and you
Goodbye.
That I did here, you can just walk right past all of the guards in the open in broad daylight. Next, you will talk to a deer. It is much harder to lose this fight than it is to win. You will receive a buff that reduces your cooldowns significantly, so just spam your abilities until they're all dead. Next, it's time for you to make another decision. You have 3 options to go to: Mountain Shaper, Cloud Retainer, and Zhao at Wangshuin. The order of these do not
Flag fly and leap. Yeah. Flags up. Observe. Let's light it up. Let's go to ashes. Flag fly. Flags up and step. Time to teach you a lesson. Delicate as silk. Lend me a hand. I'll never accept defeat. Your grand finale. Observe. Take cover. Astra Thank you for completing today's Ad Astra Abyss. Ad Astra Abyssa.
Oh, it's you! Didn't think I'd be running into you here. How are your adventures, and where are you going after this? Bet you've got a really exciting adventure lined up, huh? Oh, I'm talking too much. I was just so excited to run into someone I admire so much. And, of course! You're the if I'm being honest, yeah. It might look like you're just handling a bunch of boring commissions. But then, as soon as something big goes down, you're always there. Anyway, I just really envy. Me, on the other hand, I'm just some unlucky guy. My adventure team even... never mind. I shouldn't get all down in the dumps in front of someone I admire. I should be open to see what I can learn. Speaking of which, I have a favor to ask. When you go adventuring later, can I come and watch? Maybe you don't know. I'm a really unlucky person to have around. If you brought me along on an adventure, my bad luck would probably just screw everything up. I don't want to get you into any trouble, so just let me watch from the sidelines. That'd be good enough for me. Maybe you don't know. I'm a really unlucky... Really? I didn't mishear you, did I? You mean, go adventure with you? Just like we do if I was on your adventure team? Wow, I never thought I'd get an opportunity like this. Aw, shucks. Hearing you say that has got me all flustered. But I'm happy to hear it. By the way, since we've got this rare chance to work together, let me share some recent intel with you. According to my friend Fischl in the guild, a mysterious based on how the guild ranked normally, after all. But since you'll be joining me this time, it'll be a piece of cake, right? But I'm happy to hear it. Of course! Defeating Storm Terror. By the way, this ruin might be a... According to my friend Fischl in the guild, I guess you're such a pro... And what are we waiting for? After all. cake, right? But I'm happy to hear. Of course. Defeating Storm Terror. By the way, this room is I guess it's
I usually like to go to Mountain Shaper first just because it's the one and it's the easiest. The main thing to note is that you do not need to break any of these rocks before starting the quest. If you do, you may need to close the game and reopen it again. So do not touch these rocks.
Movie!
Touch. Don't touch.
Touch.
Do I have to follow you all day?
After talking to this NPC, you will need to find his brother, who will be in one of these rocks along the mountain. Just keep breaking them until you find something that doesn't quite belong there.
One of these things is not like the other.
Once you find the missing person, go back up to the top and you're done.
Rex Lapis. Assassinated? At the rite of dissension?
Next up is Cloud Retainer. For this section, all you have to do is go to these 3 bonfires and investigate. Once you find something that doesn't quite belong there.
One of these things is not like the other.
Once you find the missing person, go back up to the top and you're done.
Rex
Have GeoTraveler, placing your rocks down can make this process much easier. But if you want to know how to do this the normal way, here it is. To start off, you'll